Today, if you go to New York City, you can see a Broadway show at the David Belasco Theater. And if you do, you just might run into the theater's namesake, David Belasco. And that's really odd because David Belasco has been dead since 1931. David Belasco was one of the most prolific playwrights and Broadway producers in the history of American theater. He wrote, produced, or directed more than 100 Broadway plays. By the age of 54, David Belasco knew an immense amount about how theaters run. He had strong opinions about how theaters should run, and he had the resources to build a Broadway theater the way he wanted it. Belasco designed the main auditorium shallow from front to back because he felt that the audience had a better experience when they were closer to the actors. Belasco's new lighting system was admired and replicated by theaters worldwide. He replaced the traditional footlights, where a simple string of lights across the front of the stage lit the actors, with a vastly more complicated system that gave realistic lighting to the scenes. The actors even had different colored lights in their dressing rooms so they could plan makeup according to their show's lighting. The Belasco Theater had a sophisticated hydraulic system, an elevator stage, huge space to the sides and above the stage for scenery and curtains, and its own special effects studio. The theater even presented different aromas to the audience during different scenes. But the theater wasn't only advanced in its functionality, it was beautiful too. The vestibule and doors were designed by John Rapp, one of the finest theater designers of his day. Rich woodwork abounded. Tiffany Studios designed the light fixtures. The auditorium had 18 mural panels by Everett Chin, a well-known artist who also worked as an illustrator for Joseph Pulitzer of the Pulitzer Prize. The ceiling was colored glass with lights above to illuminate the ceiling from behind. The Belasco was home to many pivotal events in the history of theater. 2 examples. In 1946, an unknown actor named Marlon Brando was hailed as a genius for his breakout performance at the Belasco. And the Belasco produced Raisin in the Sun, the first play by a black woman to be produced on Broadway. David Belasco was always at his theater. His 10-room apartment with the decor of a Gothic church was above the theater. He was known by everyone in the arts community. Belasco is even mentioned by name in the novel The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald. Belasco's works were known far beyond Broadway. Over 40 motion pictures were made of plays Belasco wrote. The great composer Puccini saw Belasco's play, Madame Butterfly, and decided to turn it into an opera. Now, how might you meet David Belasco at his theater today? Following Belasco's death, the theater was rumored to be haunted by his ghost. David Belasco spent nearly every waking hour in the theater, and people just couldn't imagine him not being there, even after he was gone. Some actors on stage said they noticed a sole, dark figure watching them closely. Others said David would walk up to them after a show and tell them they had done a good job. The New York Times reported that a caretaker's dog would growl at an unseen intruder every day at exactly 4 p.m. Only 5 years ago, the Belasco Theater, now one of the oldest existing Broadway theaters, spent $15 million to renovate the theater as it was in Belasco's time. That renovation will allow this living Broadway landmark to continue to entertain, amaze, and maybe even spook people for many years to come. One late evening, an usher, about to lock up, looked back at the beautiful dark theater and playfully called out, "Good night, Mr. Belasco." The 6 outer lobby doors swung open silently and in unison. "Good night, Mr. Belasco."